Good day to you. Welcome to Examplanet services. My name is Adeboyega, Adebobola. This is a continuation of our IELTS reading practice. The last time we looked at an overview of what the IELTS reading entails. We also checked the different types of questions you should expect. And we gave a few tips that would help you answer each type of question. I remember clearly that I said, aside from learning the types of questions and the tips to apply for each, one of the things we have to do that makes us realize that we now know how to go about those questions is to practice. It is when we practice again and again that we realize that we are really assured to write the exams. So today we're going to look at a few questions and also checked how to answer each type. I'll implore you that you should pause these questions as you're looking at the passages as well as the questions. Pause it, answer it yourself, applying the tips we learned in the last class on how to answer each type of question. After you're done with answering the questions, we'll do a thorough analysis on each type of question. So, of course, we're looking at questions 1 to 14. So you could pause it for a few minutes as you're holding whatever medium you're using to watch this. There's your tab, your phone, whatever it is. Pause it for a few minutes. Answer the questions, then we'll analyze it together. Alright, now for questions 1 to 6, all you're meant to do is to match each of those questions with any of the holiday location. It's always very advisable to actually look at the question first before you trace it to the passage. This always saves you a whole lot of time. For question 1, the question is, this holiday doesn't cater for young children. As we look at the passage, which one seems not to cater for young children? Apparently, the correct option is the Cedar Lodge, C. Why? Because you actually have the information, a blend of casual sophistication and rich rainforest ambience for those over 25. Let's go to question 2. This holiday provides a tour at no extra cost. As we look at the passage, each one does show a provision of a tour at no extra cost. The option that matches that has to be option B, because you have free minibus trip around Ireland. It might look as though option A could be correct because you have horse riding, but since it's a tour, of course, a minibus trip will fit into that category much more than horse riding. In addition, horse riding is actually with optional extra. For question 3, this holiday involves most travel time from the airports. We have to compare the travel time from the airports. C has 10 minutes by taxi. B, half an hour or 30 minutes by minibus. But for A, you have 1 hour 15 minutes by self-drive or 2 hours by the bus. So the one that has the most travel time would definitely be A. But to ensure that while answering number 1 to 3, that your answers are actually written by you choosing the correct letter, not writing the answer you could see in the diagram. For number 4, say when will one of the holiday locations not be open? The answer to that is actually under comments, under Pelican results. It says resort will close for May. So apparently the answer will be May. For number 5, which 2 outdoor activities are provided at no extra cost at Mountain Lodge? 2 outdoor activities. Mountain Lodge, we have like 4 activities there. But the talk is about outdoor activities. So we wouldn't refer to the second one, which is free talks in the evening, as an outdoor activity. And the last one, horse riding optional extra. That one is definitely coming at a cost. So the answer would be tennis courts and free canoeing. But please note that the instruction for 4 to 6 is you shouldn't use more than 3 words. So how best should you actually answer that? You should write it by saying canoeing or tennis. Anything more than that will definitely be marked as wrong. For number 6, what is the fastest way to travel to Mountain Lodge? You have 2 options there. Bus takes 2 hours. Self-drive auto takes 1 hour 15 minutes. So obviously, self-drive auto will be the fastest way to travel to Mountain Lodge. Let's get questions 7 to 14. I believe we read the passage. We've also answered the questions. For this particular kind of question, all you need to do is look at the options very well. A says covered by government arrangements. For B, covered by the multi-plan policy. C, not covered by the multi-plan policy. D, covered in some situations. You are meant to write the letter A, B, C, or D. For number 7, a student traveling overseas suddenly needs hospital treatment. Which of the categories should he actually fall? A student traveling overseas, of course, is under medical. So these arrangements will cover all emergency hospital treatments. All emergency hospital treatments. So that definitely will be option A, covered by government arrangements. Because the beginning of that paragraph says Australia has reciprocal medical arrangement with the governments of the 8 nations you will be visiting. So that's covered by the government arrangements. For question 8, a student consults a doctor regarding a minor problem while abroad. For option 8, it says a student consults a doctor regarding a minor problem while abroad. We can actually see the clue in the same paragraph. That's the first one under medical, where you have students who have to take out insurance such as multi-plan to cover the cost of all visits to doctors. So that tells us that the answer would definitely be B. For question 9, a parent goes overseas to bring an injured or sick student to Australia. We can actually see the clue to that on the second paragraph under medical. You actually find the clue on the second paragraph under medical. It says, depending on the circumstances, this may also pay for either medical personnel or family member to accompany you home. The fact that you have depending on the circumstance tells you that it will not always be in all cases. So that tells us that the option will be option D, which is covered in some situations. For question 10, a student is treated overseas for an illness he or she had before leaving Australia. If we move to the passage, just the next sentence, it says, multi-plan insurance may not cover all pre-existing medical conditions. So before you leave, be sure to check with them about any long-term illnesses or disabilities. If it actually says may not, it means it may also cover it in some cases. So definitely our answer will also be option D, covered in some situations. Question 11 is a student who requires medical treatment has lost his or her travel insurance card. If you go to the passage, you can see the clue on the last paragraph under medical, talking about claim on insurance. The last clause there says the claim will not be accepted unless you produce both your student's card and your travel insurance card. So definitely, if a student has lost his or her travel insurance card, it will not be covered by multi-plan. So that's option C. For question 12, a student's study books are lost. If you check the passage very well, realize that under belongings, we actually have replacement value of your briefcase or backpass and study books. So definitely, the multi-plan will provide for that. The next question, question 13, say a student's laptop is stolen. If you check the passage very well, the next key point there actually answers the question. It says portable computers and CD players if you specifically list them as items in the policy. So that tells us that in some cases, when you list them, the multi-plan will actually cover. That also means that if you don't list them, that the multi-plan will not cover it. So the option will be option D, covered in some situations. The last one says, a student changes his or her mind about plans to study and decides not to take the booked flight. If you look at the paragraph under cancellation, the last sentence there, which also happens to be the last sentence in the passage, says it does not provide cover if you change your study or travel plans for other reasons. If you read the previous one, it tells you the reasons for which the multi-plan can actually cover. That's due to unforeseen circumstances. That is definitely out of your control. So since it doesn't provide for that, the option will be option C. Just be able to ask you to look at these questions first. before we did the analysis together. For the next couple of questions also, I will expect you to pause it, answer the questions under each, then after that, we'll actually do the corrections together. I believe you've chosen your answers. I also want to believe that most likely you did it better than the first one you did. This is because I expect that by now there would be a lot of improvements in the way in which you choose answers. Let's now go to these current one we just looked at. These are the passages, and I think we've checked it on our own. For number 15, what does it say? It says, if you see anything suspicious, you should report it to a dash employee. What kind of an employee? Of course, when you say under general, the first paragraph, talk about what you should inform. Inform a senior member of staff. Of course, member of staff there is just a synonym of employee. So the answer to 15 will definitely be senior, because that is the kind of employee you should report to or inform. For number 16, it says, if the company wants to stop you and dash you, you have to agree. So what are two things I listed that could be done by the company to a person? Under company property, you advise that it is within the company's legal rights to detain any person. The next question, it says, the company reserves the right to search staff members leaving or entering. So if you check very well, detain there apparently is the synonym of stop. And the next thing that the company can do to you is to search. It says the company reserves the right to detain and to search. For number 17, say if you take things belonging to the company without permission, you will face dash. Number 17. What do we have in the passage? The second paragraph under the company property. It said the member found removing company property from the building without proper authority will be subject to disciplinary action. So the answer to that will definitely be disciplinary action. I want to believe that you've noticed by now that the answers are quite orderly, which is a very good pointer, because it helps you locate where the clue to the next question will likely be. If you look at the next question, number 18, it says staff, dash and visitors must all wear a badge on company premises. Where do you have a clue to that? Under identity badges, you say you will, that refers to the staff. Then if you go down a little, say the purpose of these badges is to safeguard our security. Badges are issued by human resources and contractors and people visiting. And of course, we have staff, dash and visitors. The only one omitted in that equation is the contractors. So that would be our answer to question 18. For 19, it says you must not pass on confidential information to dash. Under confidential matters, if you check the last sentence there, it says it is therefore essential that you should at all times be aware of the serious view the company will take of disclosure of such material to outsiders? So definitely the answer to that will be outsiders. Those are people you shouldn't pass information to. For number 20, say if you leave the company, you have to hand in any dash you have made on matters concerning the company. You have to realize that the trick here is what you have to hand over, not to whom you have to hand it over to. And if you check the last paragraph, I'll read a sentence from the middle of the paragraph. It said, before you leave the company, I'll read a sentence from the middle of the last paragraph. It says, before you leave the company, you must hand over to your manager all private notes. So we hand it to the manager, but what we hand over are private notes. So the answer to that will be private notes. Let's now check questions 21 to 27. Question 21 is a bit tricky because it says, in what year were regulations extended to cover most of the workers who were originally excluded? It is tricky because you have 3 dates there, but always understanding the information that applies to each that helps you choose the correct one. For the first one, it says, however, some workers were not covered when the WTRs came into force in October 98. Since the regulations were amended with effect from 1st August 2003, the majority of these workers have been entitled. So 2004 just tells us about when they decide to apply to some other workers. But the year when most workers who were originally excluded were covered is actually 2003. For question 22, say what is the minimum annual paid holiday which workers are entitled to? If you look at the passage very well, the second paragraph, say workers who qualify are entitled to no fewer than 4 weeks. No fewer, so it can't be less than that. So that is the minimum. For question 23, say during a worker's first year of employment, what proportion of their annual holiday does a month's work give? For the third paragraph, say for the first year of work, special accrual rules apply. For each month of employment, workers are entitled to 1/12 of their annual holiday. For 23, it will definitely be 1/12. For question 24, what can an employer give a worker to stop them taking holiday that they have requested? If you look at the fourth paragraph, the last sentence there, it says, if an employer does not want you to take that holiday, they can give you counter notice. So definitely the employer can give a counter notice to stop the holiday that has been requested for. For question 25, say what is given as a possible reason for an employee having to take a holiday at a certain time? If you check the passage very well, on the 5th paragraph, it says if the employer wants you to take holiday at a given time, for example, when there is a shutdown, so the time, the possible reason that is given for an employee to have a holiday at a certain time is when there is shutdown. So the answer to that will be shut down. For question 26, It says when an employee leaves their job, what should be given in place of any holiday they have not taken? We can find the clue to that on the 6th paragraph. The last sentence on the 6th paragraph. Say, however, when you leave the job, you are entitled to receive payment for any outstanding holiday, provided your contract specifically allows it. So what they receive is payment. So the answer to that will be payment. For question 27, it says, apart from a contract, what type of documents may set out an employee's holiday rights? If you check the passage very well, on the last paragraph, it says, it may be that your contract gives you better rights, or your rights might be specified in a collective agreement. So collective agreement is a document that could set out an employee's holiday rights. Okay, I think we are doing well, but we can just do better. Let's now look at the last section of the IELTS reading practice we've been considering. By the last two sections, I'll ask you to please pause on the passages and the questions. After you have attempted the questions, then we'll actually solve it together. The first thing you have to do for this list of headings or matching heading question is to know that option Roman figure 6 and Roman figure 11 can never be used, since those are the options for paragraph A and B. That tells us that you could only choose from the remaining options, since none of those options can be used twice. The first one we are considering is section C, which is question 28. If you read it very well, we said we don't just read the first sentence or the last one to get a clue, but we'll check the overriding theme or the subject matter. What sounds like the topic sentence? That's what we said in our previous lessons. So if you look at this one very well, you realize that from even the first sentence, when it talks about the roots of echinacea or the purple cornflower, the first thing you say is had been used. If you look at the second sentence, it says they applied poultices of it to wounds. Use it for teeth. If you look at the last sentence still, say they even used it for snake bites. So the overriding theme in that place is the usage. So whatever answer we will get will be something about the use. So if you go to the options, the only answer that matches what we just read now is Roman figure 5. Early applications of echinacea, because it had been used. If you check the next paragraph, which is the D, you realize that almost everything about this paragraph is about the research. It talks about how Meyer sent samples of blood purified to Leod, which he dismissed. Then Leod being converted later by John King, who tested the herb, and later Leod himself went further in his claims than Meyer. So if you check that particular paragraph very well, it's all about research, about who does it first, who they didn't believe, who now did something that converted somebody, and who now went further the most. So everything about our paragraph is about research. So if you look at the options very well, the best fit will be Roman figure 7. Early research into the effectiveness of echinacea. If you look at the next paragraph, which is paragraph E, our question 30, you realize that the beginning part talks about how the use declined in the US. But the next sentence tells us about how it became more popular and used more often in Europe. How do you know exactly what should be the heading for that particular paragraph? We will check the later part of that paragraph to check exactly what is being buttressed. So if you look at the later part of that paragraph, you realize that it is the use in Europe that is actually being emphasized, with an example made of Germany. How it was put in ointments, in liquids for internal and external use, and into products for injections. So we realize that it is the use in Europe that was more emphasized. And so the answer to that will be Roman figure 9, the use of echinacea in new locations. If you look at question 31, which is section F, and check what exactly is being buttressed. If you look at paragraph F very well, it tells us that though Dr. Meyer will not be surprised by the use of echinacea in all circumstances, he will probably be amused if he sees what modern science has done with this herb. The next paragraph in that particular section tells us about how you will be surprised about the usage against all sorts of diseases, particularly infections. If you also look at the next paragraph in that same section, he emphasizes on the use of echinacea today, or in our modern times anyway, because you can see there clearly that dozens of packaged products containing extract of echinacea can now be found in shelves, stores, pharmacies. So if you look at it very well, you see many of those might be the modern equivalents of snake oil. So if you look at it very, very well, it is about how it is used in modern times. So which one should be the answer among those options? Apparently, it should be Roman figure 10. Modern evidence of the effectiveness of echinacea. Let's now look at section G. Everything about paragraph G tells us about the growth, how to grow echinacea. How do we know that? It tells about what kind of plant it is, what it is resistant to, and what kind of soil it does best in. But for us to ascertain that it's about the growth, the next sentence still corroborates the idea of growth. It tells us about how plants are usually grown, either from seeds or from nurseries. So if you look at the entire passage clearly, it tells us that the correct option should be Roman figure 3, growing echinacea. And let's look at the last section, which is section H. Though the section begins with the species of echinacea and the fact that they all have similar medicinal properties. The main emphasis of that section is what we really make use of in the echinacea plant itself. For Europe, the section tells us about liquid concentrates from the top plants, whereas in the US, the extraction is actually done from the roots. Today, we are told most manufacturers, they blend both. That is both what is used in the US and in Europe. And if you go to the next paragraph in that same section, it talks about the home grower who uses the roots and things like that. So if you check the emphasis in that particular section is about what we make use of in the echinacea plants. So what will be our answer? The answer to that will be Roman figure 4. How to use the echinacea plants. Let's now look at our next set of questions. We are now looking at true, false, not given. If you look at question 34 to 40, we are dealing with true, false, not given. That could be the most tricky of all your question types. And as you can see it clearly, true means they agree with the information. False means this question contradicts information in a passage, while not given means there's no clue about this particular information. 34 says, snake oil sellers believed their product was effective. That is clearly false, because we are told in the first paragraph that the smarter snake sellers left town before their customers had much chance to evaluate the cure. That means that they knew the cure wasn't what they said it was, so they had to leave town before they were caught. For 35, say most people in the Wild West mistrusted snake oil. As much as we have Wild West being mentioned in paragraph A, we are never given a particular number of those that mistrusted it, because some still patronize them. There's no information on those that would probably have mistrusted the oil. So for 35, the answer would be not given. If you look at question number 36, it says some snake oils were mostly water. For paragraph B, if you look at it very well, it begins with the remarkable thing about many of the medicines dismissed then as snake oil is not so much that they fail to live up to the outrageous claim made for them. Those that weren't harmless colored water. So that means that most likely if some were harmless colored water, some most likely will be water. So some of them were mostly water. So the answer to that will be true. For 37, it says all snake oils contain echinacea. The first thing you must actually do is to always avoid extreme words or statements while choosing answers, because they are hardly ever correct. For 37, of course, the answer would be false, because we are never told about all snake oil ever. For 38, it says echinacea has proven to kill microbes, and that's true, because we could see that in paragraph F. It talks about how effective it is against bacteria and protozoa. So the answer to that will be true. For 39, it says the highest quality echinacea is grown in America. Though probably it might have started there, nothing was said about comparing one quality to another in different continents or countries. So as much as they might have begun it, you are never told that the best quality is the one being used in America. So the information to that is not given. So we'll choose not given for 39. For the last question, question 40, say more than one part of the echinacea plant has a medicinal use. That's obviously true. If you look at the last paragraph, paragraph H, it talks about the top plants, talks about the roots, and things like that. So obviously, more than one part of the echinacea plants has a medicinal use. Thank you for watching. It is advisable that you actually look at this analysis once again and you make use of it while looking at some other questions. I think it will be very vital.